All right, we're welcoming in Denver Broncos coach Sean Payton, Fox employee, 48 hours? 48 hours?
Yeah, I'm on my last week here. It's funny, when we came here in the preseason, they had like a national TV preseason game, Arizona-Baltimore. It was like kickoff of Fox nationally, and it was the idea being is this is where it's beginning, this is where it's ending. And it seems like that was like a month and a half ago. But yeah, I'm excited to be a part of the team that's covering the game. We've already had a couple production meetings, and then meanwhile in my hotel room I've got my laptop set up. I'm doing Zoom interviews. So it's been a good week, and I'm going to miss that group. They're pretty special, and it's easy once you work for them to see why clearly they're number one. Like pregame show, it's not even close. Their production element and how they do a game. It's fantastic.
Yeah, obviously you're here working with Zebra Technologies.
Yeah.
Get a chance to talk about that. We've talked about that in the past with you. I wanted to ask you, I know you had a chance to spend some time with Russell Wilson last night, and I caught something that you said. It was really interesting to me. We go through this season last year with Russell and the Broncos, and so much gets written on our side of the fence about what's happened? He's gone off a cliff. Like, how do they get out of this contract? And it was interesting because simultaneously Jacksonville was turning around. Trevor Lawrence was fine. Like, it was in the same season, everyone's looking at Russ and going, what's wrong? We're looking at Jacksonville and going, oh, wow, all of a sudden, what's right? Like, what's changed?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that triangle of coach ownership?
All of it matters. Typically speaking, if a team's 5-12, there's probably a lot of muddy hands. Now the focus always goes to the quarterback and the head coach, and that's nothing new. But that being said, getting the right culture, putting the right program in place, all of those things, how you run the football, how you play defense, these things all come back to good quarterback play. And so my decision to go to Denver was based on the important things at the top of the food chain, and that is the Walton Penner ownership group, meeting them and really spending time with them. I think I have good instincts. George Payton, who I'll work with daily, has been fantastic. And if you feel good about that triangle, you got a chance. It doesn't guarantee you success, but you have a chance. What guarantees you something is when that's not right, you have no chance. And that exists in a lot of teams in our league. They can beat you on a Sunday, but they're dysfunctional at the top. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited to work with Russell, but just as importantly, I'm excited to work with the team relative to, bringing back kind of a franchise that's used to winning and being successful.
The culture prism, anytime there's this kind of a seismic change in an organization, especially at the start, it gets focused a lot through culture. What's going to change with the culture? That's very broad. It's a lot of different things, obviously.
Yeah, but I think I think it's actually pretty narrow. And having gone through it in New Orleans, number one, it's like a garden. You have to pay attention to it daily. Number two, it's people. And what I mean by that is you can have great cultural goals and attention to detail, but if you're bringing the wrong people into that environment, it's going to fail. And so, finding the right people, and that's not just with the players, but it's throughout the building, and then the attention to detail on every little thing. So if you have passionate people and you pay close attention to the details, I think once again, all we're trying to do is give ourselves the best chance in each of these ways that we approach it. But those formulas they've really kind of held the test of time.
You had Drew for such a long continuum of his career. How much did that help you as a coach? You worked to adjust the offense over the course of Drew's balance.
Yeah, like what we did in New York with Kerry Collins is entirely different than what we did in Dallas with Quincy Carter or Vinny Testaverde, and then what we did in New Orleans changed when we had the second pick of the draft. We were looking at Cutler, Matt Leinart, Vince Young. That was that class in 06. And then Drew became available. We were able to get that deal done and free us up relative to who we might draft. And then very quickly, we started looking at, all right, we had Pete Carmichael on our staff who had been at the Chargers, and it was a coincidence. We had just hired Pete, so he'd been with Drew. Well, Pete was a little bit of the liaison as to, hey, this is what he called this play. Well, so we're just starting out, like, we'll call it that then. I mean,
right.
It's a simple term. But, yeah, our jobs, I think, as teachers are to build we have systems in place, and we understand what we want to do, but we also have to build around what we have, because what we have is pretty fluid in our game. It can change. And so, look, we had Taysom Hill playing. This is the way we were going to play.
Right.
Teddy Bridgewater went 5-0 with us. We were going to play a game a certain way. I think that's just being smart, and that's coaching.
Now, I heard a story. I have to ask you about this, because this is. I just have to know if this is real. I heard the famous Raiders heckler. I heard you actually.
So it was a Seahawk heckler.
It was the Seahawk. Okay. I thought
all right. So when you come out of
he's heckling at a Raiders game. That's right.
No. All right. It was a Raiders player, Josh Jacobs.
Josh Jacobs. You're talking.
Was in Seattle.
Right. Yeah.
And he was talking about his experience. We were on the same set together, and I'm listening to the story, and I'm like,
I know that guy.
I know this guy. And when you come out of the tunnel and you start to the field, right to your right, about 4 rows up, this guy's got 18 signs. He's
memorable.
He's like, I'm almost like in free agency, want to sign him to our team, And anyway, he's prepared. And so it can be nasty. It can be all those things. And Josh made the point. He goes, when I heard this guy, I needed, it was motivation, right? And they won that game. But when he was telling the story right away, I'm like, I knew this guy.
Yeah.
And we played a lot of big games against the Seahawks. And so, one of the games I kind of, we're there way early. And so I kind of planted a little something under his seat so that when he opened it up, he got there. It was like, it was like a buck you before he could buck me.
Yeah. Is it true you knew his name?
I didn't know his name.
You just knew the location.
I knew the exact seat location, though.
You didn't personally leave the message, though. You send somebody to do that, right? Like it's
No. I had written this out in the locker room with a Sharpie, and then my assistant took it up to. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about Zebra Technologies. We've talked to you a few times over the years about this. I'm curious, now that we're pretty deep into the lifespan of Zebra Technologies, like what's changing? What continues to be updated? Are there pleasant surprises?
No, I think it's a great question. I would say this. So 9 years for the league, and they just reached another extension. It's simple first. Number one, I think a lot of people don't know what Zebra is. It's just the barcodes that we have on every product. We go to any store, we buy food or clothing, or anytime you get something scanned, it's Zebra. And so those chips now are in the shoulder pads. We're able to essentially measure certain things we never had before. And the number one thing would be the fan experience and the studio experience with next-gen stats. That's Zebra. So how fast a player is traveling, who was the fastest on the weekend, who was the quickest, all that stuff, where they line up on a given play.
Right.
My first exposure was, soft tissue injury prevention. So when I have some data that I can look at the end of the week and just kind of look at distance traveled, where I want to see groups of players in the same area. And so when I see an outlier, like, why is that? And is he at more risk?
And it's practice data. This is practice data.
It's practice data. Training camp practice data.
Reps,
And so, because we can all say we're going to reduce the practice time today, but does it really change, a certain player's workload? And so a little bit more exact information on practice data. But I think what we're going to see in the next 10 years is we're going to see this applied to officiating more.
Oh, okay.
We're going to see they're in the ball, the chips, yard to gain or goal line. We've got we've got the ability to actually light the end zone up when the ball crosses the goal line, so the official can just look at the knee as opposed to the knee and the ball. When you see an NBA game and a guy shoots a three-pointer at the end of the half, the backboard turns red when it's double zeros. We just look at the ball in the hand and we say,
it's there.
It's there. So we can do that the same way, and there's too much at stake right now. So I think when the ball's punted out of bounds, that's a mess. when I punt the ball in the air out of bounds, you ever watch?
Exactly right. Yeah.
This guy just starts walking.
Yeah, you're watching. You're
and
like,
the official just says, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we'll see that begin. And look, we're trying to help the officiating become more efficient, and I think we've got the technology to do that.
Do you? Is there anything over that lifespan? This last question here, just to wrap this up. Is there anything unexpected that you've gotten out of Zebra that maybe at the year 1 to year 9, where you're like, wow, I never thought that would come out?
Yeah, it's grown. I just spoke at their yearly kind of meetings in New Orleans, and it's amazing. I think what's the clientele they're working with has expanded so much, and I think as long as you know what you're looking for from the data, you know, because we can receive a lot of it, and then you might say, this is all I need. But the ability to track exactness relative to your product in the store, like how much do you have? It's an accounting method.
Yeah.
This is where we're at.
It's like the inventory of football almost.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, Sean, I appreciate you coming out. Thank
you very much.
Good luck in Denver. Look forward. Hopefully I'll get to see you in camp.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.